Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at just one text, one incredibly intense situation. It's all about survival, but maybe not just physical survival.
Exactly. We're exploring how being trapped physically forces a kind of psychological deep dive, too. It's centered on Jessie Burlingame, stuck in this terrible spot at a summer house, Kashwakamak Lake, very remote.
Yeah, the setup is pretty chilling.
Mm.
Jessie and her husband, Gerald, they were planning this intimate game. Involved handcuffs.
Right. The classic setup for something going wrong in this kind of story. She's already handcuffed to the bed, isolated, and then things immediately go south.
She wants to stop. She tries a soft approach first, just, I don't feel like it.
But Gerald's too far into his fantasy, I guess. He doesn't take it seriously. He actually seems to think her resistance is part of the act.
Which is horrifying.
It really is. That failure of communication, right when vulnerability is highest. So she has to, cut through the noise. And what works is contempt. She calls the whole thing stupid. The cuffs ridiculous. That breaks the spell. You see the gleam just die in his eyes.
And then his body just gives out. Right then, he gets furious, but it's like his system short circuits. There's this awful wheezy scream, and he collapses.
Dead. Probably a heart attack, maybe a stroke, the text implies.
Leaving Jessie completely alone, naked, chained to a bed, next to her dead husband, miles from anywhere. The crisis hits on every level at once.
It's overwhelming, and the mind's reaction is fascinating. It doesn't just shut down. Instead, it kind of fractures, right?
Yeah, it creates this internal committee. Different voices, distinct personalities, all starting to talk, to argue. It's immediate.
It's like a rapid response team for the psyche. These aren't just random thoughts. They're characters debating what to do, how to feel, what's real. It's a defense mechanism.
So who shows up first?
You get Ruth. She's the practical one. No nonsense, maybe a bit sarcastic, very impatient. Her whole focus is, okay, how do we get out of this physically?
The action-oriented voice. But then there's the opposite.
Right. Good wife, Burlingame. Goody. She's all about denial, conforming, and self-blame. She's the one whispering, maybe you asked for this, or you should have just let him finish.
Which is such a chilling voice to have in your head at that moment. Why? Why is that voice part of the survival kit?
That's a great question. I think the source suggests Goody is, strangely, protective in her own way. Blaming herself is almost easier than facing the sheer random awfulness of it all. Makes the world seem, I don't know, controllable, even if it means blaming the victim.
It keeps things comprehensible, maybe.
Yeah.
In a twisted way. Avoids the void.
Exactly. But then there's the third key voice, Pumpkin.
The inner child.
Yeah, the vulnerable one. But she's crucial. Pumpkin holds the key to something buried very, very deep, a memory Jessie spent years avoiding.
So you had this internal battle. Ruth pushing for action, Goody for submission and denial, and Pumpkin hinting at some deeper truth.
And this whole internal drama immediately flags that her physical chains are linked to, let's call them psychological chains she's been wearing for a long time.
The cult of self. Right. That's the term used.
Yeah, the source uses that phrase to describe the whole structure of denial she built around her past, especially her marriage, and, well, something even earlier. The idea is powerful. The handcuffs are just a metal version of the mental prison she's been in for decades. She's trapped by steel, yes, but also by her refusal to face certain truths.
Okay, so the psychological stage is set. But the physical reality starts pressing in almost immediately. There are urgent deadlines, even before she can think about the cuffs themselves.
Number one, thirst. Dehydration. It's brutal. She's literally yards from this huge lake, but completely cut off from it.
And focusing on getting water becomes this, manageable goal, doesn't it? It stops her from just dissolving in panic over the bigger picture, the body, the isolation.
Totally. It's a mental trick for survival, and the way she figures out how to get that water, it's genius born of desperation.
Gerald's water glass on the shelf above the bed.
Right, and she realizes the shelf is balanced, like a little seesaw. She uses her cuffed left hand, the one further away, to push down her end, tilting the shelf.
Slowly, carefully sliding the glass toward her right hand, inch by inch.
And then the straw. That detail is amazing. A forgotten Newsweek subscription card, like junk mail, basically.
Just a little piece of paper, 6 by 4 inches. She folds it, makes a makeshift straw, and manages to drink the water, the melted ice.
It's incredible. It shows that practical side, the Ruth voice maybe, is fully engaged, finding a solution to a micro problem. The source calls that little paper straw one of the greatest inventions ever. It bought her time.
But time runs out in a different, horrifying way. There's a second deadline.
The dog. A stray finds its way in through the unlatched back door.
Oh, man. And it's drawn. It's drawn to Gerald's body.
Yes. The horror just ramps up exponentially. The dog starts feeding on the corpse, his arms, his sides. It's visceral.
It creates this unbearable pressure.
Yeah.
Now she's not just trapped. She's trapped with something desecrating the body, something potentially dangerous to her. And those cuffs. Craig security hand restraints, M17, male size.
Yeah, strong cuffs. And the cruel irony is her own body is the final lock. She can turn her wrists, but there's that small bone just below the thumb.
The bony outcrop. It stops her slipping out.
And you can read that symbolically, can't you? That tiny, unyielding bit of her own anatomy is like the tiny, unyielding bit of repressed truth keeping her psychologically trapped.
Which forces the issue, really. The inner voices, especially Ruth and Punkin, they basically tell her she can't get physically free until she smashes that cult of self. She has to face the thing she buried.
The memory has to come out. And it does, under all this pressure. The Eclipse, 1963.
Dark Score Lake. She's 10 years old, sitting on her father's lap. Tom Mahout, watching a total solar eclipse, a moment that should be pure wonder.
Becomes tangled with absolute horror. He molests her. Right there, during the eclipse. His hand, the pressure against her, the discharge he leaves, it's described so unflinchingly.
Devastating. And then a cover-up. He makes her promise silence forever and ever, amen.
He manipulates her, tells her revealing it would destroy the family, and worse, convinces her she was somehow partly responsible. That secret pact, that's the foundation of her denial. That's what weakened her defenses against men like Gerald later on.
So connecting that moment to the present, it's this huge psychological leap. She realizes escape now requires the ruthlessness she didn't have back then.
Yes. The physical act becomes symbolic of the mental breakthrough. It's like she has to sacrifice a part of herself physically to liberate herself mentally.
The plan is, well, it's brutal.
It is. The logic is terrifyingly clear. That bone is the obstacle. Remove the obstacle. She takes the broken piece of the water glass.
Which smashed earlier when the dog startled her.
Right. She uses that jagged edge like a scalpel to cut her own wrist. The flesh, the tissue around that bone.
To create enough space, enough give, to slide past it. The pain is described as just a red mist. She feels her skin tear, roll under the steel.
With the tiny squelch. Horrible detail. But she does it. She yanks her hand free. It's this moment of ultimate self-violation that's also ultimate self-liberation. She's free from the cuff.
But freedom doesn't mean peace, does it? The ordeal isn't over. It shifts into something stranger.
Yeah, the aftermath is haunted. Literally, maybe. She keeps seeing this figure, especially at night. The space cowboy.
Describes him as having really long arms, a blank face, carrying this wicker case full of bones and jewelry.
Exactly. And in her traumatized state, she thinks it's her father, his eclipse face come back somehow, a ghost, a hallucination.
Which is what everyone wants to believe, right? Especially her lawyer, Brandon Milron. The handcuffs complicate everything legally.
Definitely. If she had help getting into them, maybe she had help with Gerald's death. So Milron cooks up a story for the cops. Gerald died accidentally. The dog came. Jessie passed out from trauma, maybe hit her head, woke up later, escaped.
Conveniently explains the time gaps in her state. And the space cowboy. Pure hallucination, according to the lawyer. Product of shock, dehydration. Makes sense, medically.
Seems plausible, except Jessie isn't entirely convinced. She remembers finding a pearl earring near the bookcase, something the police might have missed, a small detail that doesn't fit the hallucination theory.
And then she sees the news reports about a real person. Raymond Andrew Joubert.
Not a ghost at all. A living, breathing monster. A serial killer, a necrophiliac, specializing in robbing graves and corpses, looking for gold teeth, jewelry.
And the detail that chills her to the bone, he was caught carrying a wicker box.
Full of bones and jewels, exactly like her space cowboy.
Oh my God, the nightmare was real.
It seems so. She needs to know for sure. She makes her lawyer take her to the courthouse to Joubert's arraignment.
She sees him, his face, pale, narrow, and she notices.
The gold fillings in his teeth, glistening, just like Gerald's had.
And then Joubert sees her.
And there it is, that flicker of recognition in his eyes. He knows her. He was there.
He laughs and whispers something to her, just loud enough for her to hear.
You're only made of moonlight.
Confirming everything, destroying the safe explanation of hallucination. The monster in her room wasn't just in her head. It was him.
He was in the house. Maybe drawn by the isolation, maybe planning something worse, interrupted perhaps by Gerald's death, the dog, her own struggles. That act of cutting herself free, it didn't just save her from the cuffs and the dog.
It saved her from Joubert.
It really looks that way, which ties everything together, doesn't it? Her physical escape, that brutal act of self-harm, was completely bound up with facing the truth. She had to dismantle that internal cult of self, revisit the eclipse, accept the violation.
To find the strength, the ruthlessness, to cut herself free from the steel, and unknowingly from a real-world predator, too.
So when we think about this, and about memory, the source implies something really interesting. It wasn't that Jessie couldn't remember the eclipse, it suggests she chose not to. Selective amnesia.
She knew, deep down, but actively suppressed it to maintain the fiction of her family, her life. The memory was there, accessible, but locked away by choice.
Which leaves us with a pretty challenging thought, doesn't it? If facing the truth, even decades later, was the key to her survival.
If memory isn't always involuntary, if sometimes we choose what to forget, or at least what not to look at, then the question becomes personal for you listening.
What truths about your own past might you be choosing not to see? And what are your own inner voices, your practical Ruth, your denying Goody, your vulnerable pumpkin? What price are they paying for that chosen piece?